Okay, without going into too much detail, the most powerful part about the VSAN is that each virtual machine can have its own storage policies within the same VSAN, and that those policies can be changed on the fly in order to improve the performance of the virtual machine or enable additional capabilities or enable additional fault tolerance for the virtual machine. So that's a tremendous jump forward. I want to show you quickly what VM storage policies are all about. I'm on the home screen, and under the monitoring section there's an icon called VM storage policies, and I've set up a gold storage policy. And because I've set up this storage policy, now I can apply it to virtual machines. So now if I were to go from here to, say, hosts and clusters view, and let's look at VM03 here, and I'm looking at its storage policies, and as you can see, its storage policy is for the gold storage policy. That means that's where it wants to be. So now then, if I were to try to migrate it, so I'm going to right click on VM03 and say I want to migrate it, and I'm going to say I want to change its data store. Click on next. It says, well, this is where I'd like to be, either on Gold Storage 2 or Gold Storage 1, because that's where I'm compatible. And then these other places, I wouldn't be compatible there. If I were to decide at this point to put it someplace where it's not compatible, then it would have a red X on the summary tab for that virtual machine. So a person can choose to do this if they want to put it on incompatible storage. Maybe all the compatible storage is full, but they would have to really try to mess it up. They can't accidentally do it. And so this storage policy, which used to be called storage profiles, it's just new to vSphere 5.5 that we call it storage policies. You may recognize it as storage profiles. This storage policy allows me to keep the virtual machine where I need it to be in regards to the capabilities of the data store. So that hasn't changed. So what has changed in regards to VSAN? Well, let's go out to PowerPoint for just a second. We can tie the VM storage policy to VSAN. In other words, when we use the virtual machine on VSAN, we get additional capabilities. For example, you could even change it to where the virtual machine files are striping across multiple physical disks in order to improve performance. Wouldn't be something you'd want to do all the time, but you could. And if you can think about all the steps that you'd have to go through in a physical environment to do that, versus just make a few software changes and let the software take care of the rest of it, then you can see the kind of power that we have because of the virtual SAN. And as I said, I'm not getting into detail about that. That's for other classes, for other training, because once we open that box, we'd be here for hours. But you can manage the capacity, the availability, and the performance through the storage policies on a VM by VM basis, even if the VMs are on the same vSAN data store. And you can do it on the fly. So two different virtual machines that are sitting on the same data store can have very different storage policies, and I can change them when I need to without having to move the virtual machine files from one data store to another. As you can see, that could fundamentally change the way that we work with virtual machine files. As far as failover, as you can see, if I have the files that are required to run the virtual machine spread across multiple hosts, then I've already got the failover built in. As a matter of fact, I can put in the policy, there's a selection in the policy that says how many host failures will it tolerate. And so I can say that, you know, if I had 2 host failures, I still have it. And it'll make sure that whatever I set in the policy, that it's got enough copies of the virtual machine files in order to make sure that those virtual machines stay available. So that's a big step ahead of just making sure there's another copy somewhere so that we could restart the virtual machine somewhere else and sort of something backing up something else. It's a more automatic type of policy. So as you can see, there's a lot of exciting changes going on in regards to storage with vSphere 5.5. There's also exciting things going on in regards to migration of virtual machines themselves. We'll talk about enhanced vMotion and what enhanced vMotion is all about and what we're going to call it and what it's going to do. We'll talk about that next.